Car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis Wright and host David Lamb.
Hello and welcome into the attorneys. We appreciate you spending your Sunday evening with us. For the next half hour, we have assembled a panel of experts to take your questions. The way that it works, you get your questions to us. We'll pass those along to our panel. So here's what you need to know. You can call, text, email. That information will be displayed at the bottom of the screen throughout the program. Also, there are attorneys actually standing by right now that you could speak with, so take advantage of that opportunity. Again, call, text, email to be a part of the conversation. Leading our conversation, as he does often, Josh Wright of the firm Hollis Wright. And this is a momentous occasion.
Oh, yes, David, it is. It's momentous.
Tonight, this show.
200 shows.
200 shows.
We have made it to 200.
Attorneys.
Very proud of that. Very proud of that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's fantastic.
Thank you very much. We, we started this back right after the terrible April storms years ago, and
April 27th. Yeah, a couple of years ago now.
And it's 3 years. It's been basically just a heck of a ride along the way. Heck of a lot. I guess it's actually been 4 years, hasn't it? Now that I think about it.
I guess you're right.
So it's just been an incredible run, and we've really enjoyed it. So we've had a great relationship here at the station and enjoyed it. We're talking about insurance today. We're getting right into it.
We're marking
insurance.
200 with the bang.
We are.
We cover a lot of ground today.
We are. First of all, we're very lucky to have my good friend Stephen Norris, who's the president of Norris Injury Lawyers. People should hear that name because they do a lot of advertising around this area. Mm-hmm. They're a great law firm. They've got a great group of guys that are running the firm. Stephen is just a great lawyer that handles personal injury related cases, wrongful death, etc. A lot of the same stuff that our firm does. Mm-hmm. So first of all, we're excited to have you on.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you for being here. David, there are some interesting statistics. To register your car right now, you have to have a certificate of insurance to prove and establish that you are able to provide for an injury to somebody else if you hit them, right? Mm-hmm. Although that's true, 20 to 30% of the people out on the road right now don't have insurance, even though you have to register a car and prove it. So what happens is people sometimes don't pay for their insurance, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But the topic is much broader today, and Stephen's a great expert for it because we're going to talk more than just about car insurance. We're going to talk about health insurance and some of the other types of insurance that impact all of our lives on a daily basis. So glad to have you on. Let's jump right off, though, and talk about one of the more common forms of insurance, which is automobile insurance. Just kind of give me the lay of the land on how that works generally.
Okay, there's many facets to auto insurance. Most people, when they hear auto insurance, they think liability insurance. So if I hit somebody, if I hurt somebody, injure somebody, what will protect me? What will provide coverage or defend me if I've done something wrong? In Alabama, we have minimum limits of $25,000, $50,000, which means $25,000 per person, $50,000 maximum per incident. And that's required by the state of Alabama, as you mentioned earlier.
So when I hear people say, "Oh, I've got full coverage," what generally you think that means? I mean, maybe people are just confused a little bit about that term, but full coverage ultimately is what?
Well, I think that people usually are confused when they hear it because when they're saying it, it's when they don't have as much coverage as they realize that they didn't realize how much they needed. Mm-hmm. So they say, well, I thought I had full coverage, what's missing? Mm-hmm. Usually when people hear full coverage, they think, I bought everything that they asked me for, which is typically liability insurance, protects you if you cause injury to somebody else. Uninsured motorist coverage, which protects you if somebody else injures you and either didn't have insurance at all or didn't have enough. And then I think comprehensive collision is what people are thinking of when they think full coverage. It protects your car. It replaces your car in the event that something's done to it. And I think they think that that is full coverage, but that's misleading.
Talk for a minute about uninsured motorist coverage, because we have talked a lot on this show and encouraged people to get uninsured motorist coverage because it's a fairly inexpensive coverage. Do you recommend that people have uninsured motorists?
I think absolutely. In Alabama, it's actually required to have it, but insurers are required to give it to you, but you're allowed to reject it. And I think people often do because they see that they can save a little bit of money off of that monthly insurance bill. But I have to say, avoid that rejecting it, because you have to have uninsured motorists, especially in Alabama. You said it, 20 to 30% uninsured. So of all the wrecks that are happening out there, so often the person hitting you doesn't have
And let's add
insurance.
some context to it. We often add context or kind of flavor to what we're talking about. Uninsured motorist coverage, as was mentioned by Stephen, is kind of that rainy day coverage. It protects you in the circumstance where you are hit by somebody else that either did not have sufficient insurance or did not have insurance at all. It's a fairly inexpensive insurance that you can purchase, and it really does help protect you and your family in circumstances where somebody's not doing it the right way on the road, doesn't have insurance or have sufficient insurance, and hits you. You want to make sure that you are protected from kind of a long-term medical perspective, protected as to the injuries that you may have sustained in that accident that could be permanent. So that's a great way to protect yourself. In Alabama, David, people are only required to carry $25,000 of liability limits. That's not a lot in a typical accident that we see on a daily basis, where you have somebody that has medical bills of $100,000 after a significant car accident, and there's only $25,000 of liability coverage. So uninsured motorist coverage, people must get it. It really should be absolutely required. It's not, you can reject it, as Stephen said, but people really need to have uninsured motorist coverage.
You all often represent folks who have been in car accidents. What effect, if any, does it have on the case, whether you have insurance or not?
Good point.
You know, an attorney can give you a lot of great advice. You know, they can help you walk through, take all the steps that you have to maneuver something complicated like dealing with a car wreck. What they can't do is go back and get you insurance where you almost got it. I have so many clients or potential clients that call and say, well, I was on my way to get it. That's too late. You know, you have to have it. And so your options are you have many more options if you have car insurance already. He mentioned uninsured motorist coverage. That's one. MedPay benefits. So many things that become available if you just have that in place by when the car wreck happens.
You know, and David, the way I kind of look at a lawsuit, and there are many people that I've sat down in my conference room that I've walked through their case with, where we talk about the triangle, the three sides that you've got to have in a case after somebody has caused injury that was not your fault. You have to have liability and be able to establish that somebody was in the wrong. And sometimes, by the way, the person sitting in the conference room is the one that was in the wrong, right? That caused the accident, and they may not have a case for that reason. You have to have the ability to prove that your injuries are causally related. That's a complicated term legally, but in short, that your injuries are related to the accident itself. And then you have to have a third component, which is damages, and the ability to have damages awarded and paid for. And oftentimes what we see is people that are not operating their vehicle, if you don't have uninsured motorist coverage, there's no ability to pay those damages. And that makes for a very complicated, difficult suit. And so, you know, people need to carry uninsured motorist coverage and need to get with a lawyer in these cases to have the cases evaluated.
Okay. Time for us to take our first break. As we do so, a reminder of how you can be a part of the conversation. You can call, text, email. Also, an attorney is standing by right now, so take advantage of that opportunity. Pick up the phone and give them a call.
200 shows.
That sounds like a lot of shows, doesn't it? It does. All right, we're heading to break. Here's how you can get in touch with us. We appreciate you being here with us. All 200 shows, including this one. Stay tuned. We're coming right back.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, and thanks for watching The Attorneys on Alabama's 13. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never need legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of this show is simple: provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to this show or related to other civil legal matters, call, email, or text us to talk with one of our lawyers. You can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter to learn about important legal news that could affect you or your family, or simply contact us by going to alabamas13.com and click on the attorney's link. Now, we know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and for watching The Attorneys right here on Alabama's 13.
Welcome back into the Attorneys. We appreciate you spending this Sunday evening with us, and a reminder of how you can join the conversation. Call, text, email. Again, attorneys are standing by. We would love to have you be a part of our conversation tonight. Gentlemen, when we went to break, you all were talking about car insurance specifically. What other forms of insurances, what other forms of insurance are out there?
Go ahead.
There's so many kinds of insurance that we couldn't even name them if we took the whole show to just list them.
Right.
But I think of the ones that people typically think about. You have health insurance, you have life insurance, short-term and long-term disability insurance, and then there's homeowners insurance.
Talk a little bit about homeowners insurance and how it kind of works in general. Is it mandated, those types of things?
Okay, different from auto insurance, homeowners insurance isn't required. Now, most people that have a mortgage on their home will know that the person giving them the money to pay for their home will require them to maintain homeowners insurance, but it is not required by the government.
A lot of times what you'll see too, David, is, and we see this all too often in the personal injury context, homeowners insurance carries with people and it travels with people. So, for example, if I'm out and about and I go and travel on business and I get into an argument that ends up in a fist fight, for example, hopefully that never happens, but let's assume it does, and I'm in Chicago, my homeowner's insurance may cover me to the extent that I caused injury to a third party. And it's very important to make sure that you've got a lawyer involved in those circumstances if they have in life. And I'm not just talking about fistfights, we're talking about a lot of other things that can happen outside of operating a vehicle at a baseball game, foul balls, a child accidentally swinging a bat and causing significant damage. In the case we have, a dog. Homeowners insurance will protect you. And it will insulate you during those moments. And you've probably seen some other circumstances too.
Yeah, we had a circumstance where, a child, kids will do things that you don't necessarily ask them to. Thought it was a good idea to try to jump up in the air and stab a football out of the air, but, got it through somebody else's hand. Didn't mean to hurt the kid, but was just not making a good decision. And those parents had homeowners insurance, and I was able to take care of that.
We've got a case
in my pocket for that.
We've got a case right now, David, where some children just enjoying themselves at a baseball field on an empty field during the time that another game was going on, using a sledgehammer that was used for pounding in the tarp to cover up the mound, using that sledgehammer and losing control of it, trying to use it as a bat, losing control of it, and it goes back and it hits a child and causes significant serious injury. Homeowners coverage is applicable in those circumstances. If you remember, we talked about our triangle, where you've got liability and you got to prove causation and being able to recover damages. If somebody comes and says, here's what happened, there's no ability to recover damages, it causes issues, of course. So getting to a lawyer early enough to be able to evaluate the case, establish the three components, and determine, hey, there are ways to recover. Homeowners is one potential option.
You hear a lot about umbrella policies and umbrella coverage. Are people required to have that?
No, not required to. And we've done a lot of talking about insurance. I don't sell insurance, so I don't, I don't market one thing over another. Umbrella is typically when you're saying all the insurance that you may have, the different types we've talked about. An umbrella policy may just sit above all of that, just in case anything goes beyond the amount of coverage that you have. And that is surprisingly not as expensive as someone might think, for as much protection as it gives you.
Yeah, you can get umbrella coverage in circumstances where you pay $400 a year and get a couple $1 million of umbrella coverage, but you have to have certain minimum limits first in place that would be required. And so umbrella coverage, another good example of if you've had an event that you didn't cause and is not your fault and you need somebody to lead, guide, and direct you through it, get with counsel to be able to ensure that all avenues have been considered, whether it's homeowners coverage being applicable, whether it is umbrella coverage that's applicable, whether it's some form of car insurance that's applicable that may be able to help compensate somebody.
A couple of questions we have on the subject of health insurance. If I have health insurance, should I carry medical payments coverage or MedPay on my car insurance?
Okay, this is something I feel strongly about. I think there are a lot of clients that feel like it was their fault, they harmed me. Should I use my health insurance? I want them to have to pay for it. In the end, if they're responsible and they have insurance, that is where the money will be coming from. But having health insurance gives you important access to medical treatment. You're able to get in and get treatment where a lot of doctors won't see you if you don't have money to pay for the visit.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that the insurance company won't just show up to the doctor with you and pay your bills. they're more in the form of reimbursing the charges that you have. So health insurance gives you access to that. It also gives you access to your contract rates. If you were to go to the hospital without insurance, your bill would be significantly higher than it would be if you had a health insurance provider who has put together a contract agreement with that provider, and the rates are a lot lower, so it gives you access to
That's
those.
an incredible point. And I know personally in your family, you've got a lawyer in your family that was engaged in some of that litigation over the years. And that's a great point, and that is that people that don't carry health insurance, and the worst case scenario, somebody comes to the office and says, I don't have uninsured motorist coverage, the person that hit me did not have liability coverage, and I don't have health insurance. What do I do? Those are terrible moments, right? Yeah. Terrible moments to have to try and work with that person. We try and help as best we can, but those are difficult moments. And so, health insurance provides great opportunities and access to you to be able to get the type of care that you need. One thing I want to talk about, I know we're about to go to break. It's real important that I want to talk about when we get back is just because you have health insurance does not mean your health insurance carrier after an accident who paid for you doesn't want some of that money back if you resolve your case. It's called subrogation. Right. I do want to talk about it. We're not going to get too in depth to it, but it's an important concept that people need to understand.
We'll pick up right there when we come back. Our second and final break of the evening. Time enough for you to get in touch with us. Reminders of how you can do so. Call, text, email. Also a reminder, you can find the firm of Hollis Wright on Facebook. Just search that term Hollis Wright. You'll find them there. And on Twitter, they are Hollis_Wright. Stay tuned. We are coming right back.
I'm Josh Firth with the law firm of Hollis Wright. When it comes to a lawsuit against medical professionals, it may seem like the law favors the medical community over the injured patient, and in many ways it does. While not every bad medical outcome is malpractice, it's important to know what obstacles you may face if you're injured as a result of poor medical care. So in tonight's Legal 411, we're answering the question, does medical malpractice really exist? The answer is yes, but if something is ruled malpractice, Alabama law limits the amount of information that can be presented to a jury about a doctor. Medical malpractice is defined as a doctor's failure to use the degree of care and skill that a physician or surgeon in the same specialty would use under similar circumstances. For example, a surgeon can only be judged by the standards for a surgeon, a dermatologist by the standards for a dermatologist. These standards and the evidence that goes to a jury are controlled by Alabama statute, which is called the Medical Liability Act. This act prevents juries from hearing about a doctor's past mistakes or malpractice issues, limits the scope of information available to the injured party, and prevents any mention of liability insurance, which would pay a judgment, the very point of malpractice insurance in the first place. However, even with these restrictions, malpractice cases can still be won. The law does protect both parties and provides access to the jury system for people who have been injured after poor medical treatment. That's why it's so important to get legal help quickly if you face this situation. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is always free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer the questions you face on real issues every day. And remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on Alabama's 13.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. Thank you so much for being with us. This is our final segment, so a few minutes remaining. So if you want to join the conversation, take advantage of the numbers and the information, the contact info you see at the bottom of your screen. Josh?
When we were going to break, David, I mentioned the concept of subrogation. We've done a whole show on subrogation. I don't want to talk too in depth about it, but suffice it to say this. If you're involved in an accident, for example, let's talk about car accidents for a minute. If you're involved in a car accident, and you have health insurance, Oftentimes, your health insurer is going to be your primary carrier that covers you to protect you for your emergency room visit, for follow-up treatment and care, for permanent injuries that you may have, etc. That health insurance company has got a contract with you, and they've got a contract with a provider, as Stephen mentioned earlier, and they've got a contract with you. Part of that contract says if a third party caused your injury, we can get reimbursement for what we paid on your behalf if you're injured at no fault of your own. And so what happens is the insurance company comes in and says, look, we paid $75,000 on your behalf because of this car accident, and we want our money back. Having a lawyer lead, guide, and direct you through the process is critically important, and here's why. The lawyer can negotiate those deals with the Blue Crosses and Blue Shields of the world, with Medicare and Medicaid, to reduce the amounts you owe back to your insurance company, to make sure that you're being fully compensated for the injury you had and you're not just paying your insurance company back. That's the short, if you will, and I may have missed something on that, but that's kind of the short of it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, don't let subrogation scare you, because you're still better off, most instances, paying back that contracted rate that they've paid rather than paying the entire medical bill that would be owed without health
Great
insurance.
point. Very good point.
We're close to travel seasons, spring break, summer will be here before you know it. Something that it's always kind of confused me, because you hear on both sides of the whole rental car and rental car insurance. Folks who say absolutely don't, it's a scam, don't live without it. Before you settle that for us, should you get a rental car insurance?
Well, I would say first, absolutely talk with your car insurance company. Whoever you have auto insurance with, call them, because policies can have a lot of different ways of putting this. Right. For the most part, when you rent a car, if you have an auto insurance policy at home, and you go and rent a car, you'll have coverage for the time that you're driving the car.
Okay.
But be careful, because sometimes when you rent a car, they'll ask you, are you going to be the only one driving this vehicle?
Right.
You may think yes, but if you have a spouse with you, grown kids that may be driving, make sure to mention that, because if you say no, it's possible that you wouldn't be covered while one of them is driving the vehicle.
And I mean, when you're talking about going to spring break, a lot of people will not drive their own vehicle to the beach.
Right.
They'll rent a car to save on miles,
Yes.
And they think it'll be cheaper. And they need to make sure that the people that are operating that vehicle are listed on that rental agreement to ensure and maintain there's appropriate coverage to the extent somebody's injured. But you can find this stuff out as quickly as calling your agent and saying, does my policy provide for rental coverage if I rent a vehicle?
So before you head out
To
on
answer.
vacation,
No
just
question.
a quick call.
Definitely.
No question. Talk quickly, too, a little bit about disability policies, because we get a lot of questions a lot of times related to disability policies. Do you recommend them? Is it a smart thing?
Sure. I think anytime somebody can afford to do that, it protects you a lot. I think a lot of people have life insurance. They may have life insurance benefits through work, but a lot of times a disability can be more expensive in the long run than even a death, because there's ongoing medical care, and somebody has to take care of the person who's disabled oftentimes, and that leaves maybe nobody to go get a job to pay for the life as it continues on.
David, another issue too that is important is a lot of people rent their home or rent an apartment where they live. There are inexpensive but significantly important rental policies that people can have that protect you, no different than if you had homeowners insurance if you owned a home in a rental circumstance. And I'll give you some examples. Under certain fire hazards, if you cause your own fire, an apartment complex may cover the loss, but they may try and bill you for the loss. Having a rental policy can protect you, significantly protect you. Content loss, if there is a storm or damage to your apartment. Yes, most apartment complexes will cover a lot, but things like acts of God, tornadoes, etc., kind of the reason this show even started in the first place was really about rental insurance and homeowners insurance and what is covered.
This is, I'm about to put you guys on the spot, but this is fresh off ripped off the wire. There's a story of college kids on a winter ski trip. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but they kind of destroyed like $400,000 worth of damage to a ski resort from a certain university, not here in Alabama. So the resort is now suing. I mean, $400,000 is what the damage they did.
Wow.
So the parents, I think, are going to be responsible for this. Is that something that could be covered in any way? Health insurance? Or
anytime you're sued, I would say talk to your insurance carriers, whichever ones you have. If you don't have insurance, talk to a lawyer. We talked about homeowners insurance, can sometimes act as general liability insurance.
Right.
Actually, rental insurance can do the same oftentimes. So if that were one of my kids, I would immediately be contacting my insurance provider.
Yeah, and there may very well be coverage for such a silly mistake that somebody made. And it doesn't have to be $400,000 for it to be a significant deal, obviously. It could be a $10,000 vase that's broken. That was accidental as a child's walking down a hallway. Somebody wants compensation for that vase, right? And
or a
protecting
parent
yourself.
dropping a crystal trophy in Tuscaloosa.
that may be invaluable. There may not be a tag on that. Tag on that. But all circumstances, we've talked a lot today about insurances, David, and the net is some of these are necessary. Some of them are luxury items, but some of them really are necessary. I think that uninsured motorist coverage, car insurance, and health insurance should be mandated. They're just so important and so significant. Again, I can't tell you the number of people that have come to me, and I'm sure to Stephen too, over the years, that have said, I've been in a catastrophic injury, or my son has, and he's in a wheelchair the rest of his life, and we had no health insurance, and we had no uninsured motorist coverage, and the person only has $25,000 of liability coverage. It's a terrible moment to have to try and help that family and work through that circumstance. There are ways to do it, and we recommend those people still get help, but it's a very difficult process.
Less than 2 minutes remaining, so just timing up for a final thought. And Stephen, we'll start with you. Okay.
For me, I think uninsured motorist coverage. We didn't talk much about policy limits. We talked about what the minimum requirement is, but the minimum being 25. I have 6 kids. Just had my 6th kid.
Wow.
So when I'm riding down the road, if somebody hits my car, usually if they have the minimum coverage, there's only $50,000 available to my entire family if I don't have uninsured motorist coverage on my vehicle. The difference may look like a lot when you're signing, but for the protection that it gives you, really, really recommend doing that.
Star on the field and off the field over here. 6 kids.
How about that?
That's big. That's important. I'll go a little off the topic. 200 shows. It's been a great pleasure to be with you and a lot of those shows, David. And the firm has really committed itself to helping answer questions of folks that have legitimate issues that come up in their lives. This show's a great show that kind of sums it all up, that there are circumstances where insurance is going to be super helpful, but if you don't have insurance, you still need to get to counsel to be able to help kind of lead, guide, and direct you through the process. And I hope we've been able to provide a good service to answer some good questions for folks over that time frame.
Well, we certainly have enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you being with us. Thank you all for being with us as well. And Stephen, the 200th show, quite a way to celebrate with us. We appreciate that. Thank you so much for being with us. 200. Hey, as we wrap up, the promise continues even after 200 shows. Call, text, email. We love hearing from you. Here's how you can do so. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll see you next time. 201.
That's right, 201.
Start a new countdown. We'll see you next time. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright.